I'm going to bring up our next storyteller. He is a very dear friend. He's also the creator and host of seriously one of my very favorite podcasts. He's also appeared at the Moth Grand Slam, and I'm so excited to have him back. Please give it up for Mark Pagán.
My first real heartbreak was in my 20s. It was my college sweetheart, and we broke up. Her name was Miriam, and it was first because I'd never really experienced pain like that before. I'm sure a lot of you have. You've had your first breakup. And so I didn't have a ritual of how to deal with this. And so I can't tell you why I decided to do this, but my pattern was I was a film student, and I had all these videos. I had a big video library, and I was like, I'm just gonna go and rewatch like the movies of my youth in my house every night. And good or bad idea, I decided to do that. And so I go to Key Food and I get a box of Goya rice and beans, cook that up, put it in a tortilla, and then like watch The Wild Bunch. And it was fine, you know, for the most part of trying to ignore my heartbreak. But I was noticing I kept doing this thing, and I had, you know, this is back when we were watching stuff on video, like I was rewinding a lot. And from these movies, from both my youth and my teenage years, I kept rewinding moments where men were physically touching each other. And as a kid, like as a film student, like I moved into film, I moved into the arts because I wasn't an athlete. And watching these, I realized there's like really three areas that I, as a boy, and probably other men, see ourselves being affectionate with men later on in life. One is in athletics, two is war, and three is like decades in Shawshank prison. Like, that's where you're allowed to physically touch a man. And in this loss, this heartbreak, I just wanted to be held by a man. And I didn't want to go to prison or war to get it. Now, in the back of my mind, there was a little switch that went off. I said, that's Mark. It's like Obi-Wan. It's like, that's not the only place. You saw this, you know? And when if you were to ask me as a kid, I grew up at the international arrival gate at Dulles Airport. That's what I would have said as a kid. My dad traveled a lot. And it seemed to be nearly like once or twice a week. It was me in my pajamas, my mom, the custodial staff at Dulles Airport. And I know there were women there, but all I remember are men, just men that were like ambiguously ethnic looking, like my father, with very tired faces and just arm hair so thick you could put curlers in it. And we're all sitting there waiting for planes to come back from places I can't say the names of. And all very exhausted, and then the doors would open. It was like the bells at the stock market, and all these little ethnic men would stand on their tippy toes and look for fellow men, you know, whether they're cousins or brothers or sons and things like that. And it became an opera. Like, I'd never seen an opera before, but that was an opera to me because these men, like their vocal pitches, I mean, they really were singing arias when they would notice other men coming in, like, my brother! And they were like massaging each other's bodies, and I was like, this is so cool. And my dad was no slouch either. My dad was a super affectionate guy, and he was like that with me, but I would go to the airport, and we'd pick up his brothers from the Caribbean. My dad was a very mannered man, you know, he would speak a very proper English and Spanish, and it would just become a marble mouth when like Dio Bangha came into town. And their bodies were just like two round men. I couldn't tell where one started, where one ended, and just like a venomous amount of Old Spice cologne in the air, which was probably like the most dangerous thing I encountered as a child. But it just felt safe. It was like the safest place in the world. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna get older, and I'm just gonna have a port of calls all over the world. I put like this Rolodex in my head of like the characters that would be picking me up at airports, you know, maybe one guy in Milan, maybe one guy in Manila. I wanted to arrive in a place in like West Africa, and I wanted to have like one man say to me when I arrived at the arrival gate, say like, who lets you into the country? Like, I just want somebody to give me a line. But the other thing with all this too is that I really, this may sound odd, I found it to be very Latino, this whole thing. My mother was white, my father was Puerto Rican, my Spanish sucked. I could tell you all the members of Menudo, but I couldn't tell you what their songs meant. And so for me, this was like a way of identifying. I was like, yeah, you know, when I get older, this will prove I will have a Latino man greet me And this is me being Puerto Rican. And that's what led me, in the midst of this heartbreak, to contact Carlos. And Carlos, I'd met during college. I don't know, I can't remember. You know how you meet people in college. It's a party. It's like nondescript. But we didn't have that much in common. Carlos was a bit older than me. He had come back to school. He had a daughter. He's a Peruvian dude, super into video games and heavy metal. And I was a hip hop kid. I could barely even keep a plant alive. But we met at this party, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. We started talking, and came up. He said, soy peruano. And I found that to be my entry. And he's like, and I've been doing this with other Latino kids for all my life. I just go like, I'm Puerto Rican, like this. Like they're supposed to say like, oh, here's your badge. Here you go. Welcome to the party. But he put his arm on my shoulder and he said, hermano, hermano, hermano. And I just I kept moving my shoulder closer in, like just keep that arm there. And so we talked for a while, and we became friends. We'd hang out, we'd drink Labatt Blue and talk about Lars von Trier movies. And he would tell me these stories about Peru, and he's like, oh, Mark, you got to come down there one time. Like there's so much fun stuff. You got to see the mountains. If you come to the mountains, I'm going to take you to, oh man, I'm going to take you like the kiosks on the road. They make this incredible soup. It's made with a cow penis. And you take it, it's like aphrodisiac, and then you just have to fuck afterwards. And I was like, I'm happy seeing the mountains. I don't know if I need the soup. But we talked and we shared these stories, and we left college and we stayed vaguely in touch. And this breakup happened, and at some point, in the midst of watching all these movies, I was like, Carlos, there's that invitation. Let me get in touch with them. So I got in touch with him. I said, how do you feel about having a visitor in Lima? He said, cool, yeah, come down. And so I got really excited. I was watching some of these movies with subtitles now, Spanish subtitles. I got a tutor to work with me in Peruvian Spanish. I even got this book, like this crappy little, almost like a dime store paperback book on soccer and like the history of the World Cup. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I thought maybe I'd show up in Lima and just all of a sudden be able to do this and like bounce stuff. I really thought that would happen, but I was just so excited. I was like, this is gonna be a South American adventure. This is going to be an adventure in South America. I was convincing myself that is exactly why I was going there. I was getting on that plane and I was saying to myself, "Oh my God, yes, that's right. This is what I'm thinking about. We're going to get on motorcycles and we're going to meet the ladies and we're going to have cow penis soup and I'm going to have so many stories to tell." But that wasn't true at all. What I was really embarrassed to admit, I would never have said this to anybody who was sitting next to me on the plane or even anybody afterwards. Until this day, of course, is that what I was thinking about, what I kept playing in my mind, is what would happen when those arrival gates, or when those arrival doors open. And I get to the airport, we arrive in Lima, and I walk through the international arrival gate, doors open, and I look around, and I see a guy with long hair who looks kind of like my friend Carlos. And he's got a little girl next to him, around 10 years old. She's got a sundress on. She has a picture. She's holding a picture. And right when I see what's on the picture, I see she points to me and kind of nudges her dad and says, "Tío Mark." And Carlos, it's Carlos, he makes eye contact with me. And he does something which I've wanted my whole life. I call it the SOB. There's a few steps here, so I'll try to walk you through it correctly. I drop my bag. We make eye contact like we're about to shoot each other in a Western. And one of us has to speak first, and it's Carlos, and he points to me, and he goes, "Mark, you son of a bitch." And in slow motion, we meet each other in the middle of the Lima airport, and we're practically making love, and with embracing each other. And I feel like all of his, the bristles of his beard on my face, and I can smell what I'm just assuming is some version of Old Spice cologne. And it gets to the point where like the world has just become completely like numb, like we're not hearing or seeing anything. And out of the corner of my eye, I see one young Peruvian guy just staring at us. And he starts a slow clap. like this. And then a few other people join, like abuelitas and stuff like that. They're just looking at these two men showing their affection near the Andes. And none of that happened. None of that happened. I arrived. Yeah, damn, wow. I should just leave the stage now, yeah. I know, I'm sorry. I leave, I get out the arrival gates, and I look around, and I'm like, well, this is funny. I don't think any of these men are Carlos. And I wander around Lima Airport for 20, 25 minutes, and then I see a guy that vaguely looks like Carlos by the front doors of the airport playing Snake on his Motorola phone. And I come up to him, and I stand next, I have to do the equivalent of just going like that. And he looks up, and he goes, oh, Mark. And he gives me a cold fish hug and says, Mira, do you have any soles? Because I need some money to get us out of the parking lot. I still held that hope. It's like, maybe this was an off arrival. I held out hope as he spent the week telling me about his bad video game ideas. I held out hope as I watched him in like his progressive amphetamine habit. But I lost hope officially soon after I met his daughter. His daughter turned out to be this super cool kid, and about 10 years old. And while I was there, I didn't know this, she was turning 10. And she was also a big soccer fan. And I had this, like I said, like this dime store soccer book that I was gonna, learn how to become, Pele in South America with. And I said to Carlos, like, look, I got nothing for your daughter. Her birthday's tomorrow, but, in the pile of gifts, why don't you it's a used copy, but just hand it to her. Like, say it's from me, and I'm happy to give her a gift at another point. So the next day, the party ends up just being the three of us going out to dinner, and there's no pile of gifts. There is a dime store paperback of soccer, to which Carlos hands his daughter and says, from your daddy to you, happy birthday. I know, God, you guys are so on my side here. I love this. Really fucked up, right? And so I left 2 days later. And I've been sitting with this story or these moments for years. I'm like, what the hell does this all mean? Because I didn't really talk to him afterwards. There's a bit of a relationship. And I think what's stuck with me, one of the things is these very quiet moments, or these quiet deaths of tenderness in men. I don't think they're heavily discussed, and I think they should be. I think it is something that should be. And I was like, oh, wait, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what I'm holding on to. Is this a moment in which I have released, or I have given up some of my tender inclinations in the world? And to that, I say, no, I doubled down, especially with airports. Oh my God. Airports, like, now it's gotten to the point where I just go to the airport just to hang out at the international arrival gate. If I go anywhere, I wave to anybody who has a sign. I've actually gone up to families and just given them hugs when I've arrived in Athens. And I've had friends that picking you up is a big fucking deal. And so I've had the great men and women that have done that for me. Because fuck Carlos. Like, I want to live in a world in which an opera can happen in any arrival gate. And I've thought about it over the years. I was tortured. I was like, oh man, maybe it was something like I didn't deserve to get picked up, or like I didn't deserve to have that affection. Not true, guys. Carlos didn't deserve to hug me. Thank you, guys.
Yum's the word